Welcome back into the show. Dr. Justin Anderson, Metabolic Coaching, Cut to Killer Carbs. That's what we talk about here in the next hour. You can check out the website, metabolic-coaching.net, or call us directly at the clinic, 448-0322. That's 448-0322. And let me say good morning once again to Dr. Justin Anderson. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Morning, Wade. I'm fabulous, man.
Yeah, we were just talking.
I'm getting younger and better every day.
I tell you, it's, again, food being your medicine and weight loss and all that. We talk about that a lot here on the show. But, we had one of our good guys walk in, Cliff Wilkes, who probably is pushing a BMI of 40. Hey, Cliff, you've got to cut the killer. Oh, no, I can't do it, Doc. I love a carb. Who doesn't like carbs, right? I mean, right. It's really hard when you start. And I was at the grocery store yesterday afternoon, and I was walking around, and I've been watching my carbs. I'm not fully on board with the plan yet, as you know. I'm kind of.
But you're aware.
I'm aware of it. I'm aware of it because of this program, and I'm starting to think about things that I put in my. Oh, wait a minute! He's going to step back in because I made that comment about he has. I said he's got a 40 BMI.
You notice there was no comment on this side of the table.
Exactly. Just let it go, Doc. Just let it go.
40 BMI. Okay, so anyway, I'm walking through the grocery store, and I'm looking at my basket, and I'm going, okay, so no carbs. I've got cheese in there, organic cheese. I've got pickles. I've got eggs. I've got vegetables. And, of course, all the meat you want. And I'm thinking, well, that's okay. But you go to the frozen section, and I'm thinking, I'll get these frozen cod fillets. They're breaded. But I thought, well, I better read the box. Better read the label. And I'm like, man, carbs again. A lot of them on the fish.
And so on the processed pre-prepared foods, then they'll usually add carbs, whether it's rice, corn, flour, sugar. Number one, for the taste. Number two, because it's cheap. Those are the commodities that are subsidized.
Yeah.
And they can add them. They're less expensive to add them than to add more fish.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dissect Cliff Wilkes' diet.
Dissect my diet.
That ought to be interesting.
What you had said earlier was that on the metabolic coaching program, you eat less than 20 net carbs a day.
Yes.
And so, Cliff, you were asking about fruit.
Yeah.
Fruit
I
and
love
vegetables.
fruit. I'll sit there and eat, for dessert, I won't go get a piece of cake. I won't go get chocolate. I'll get, a cup of grapes and 4 or 5 strawberries and have dessert with fruit.
And everybody thinks that's good, right? But not so fast.
So on the 4 or 5 strawberries, awesome.
Sure.
The thing about a grape is each grape has 1/2 to 1 net carb each. So if you
define a net carb.
Well, you take the total carbohydrates in a food,
okay,
and you subtract out the fiber because the fiber is indigestible.
Sure.
Doesn't raise your blood sugar, and so that leaves essentially what are the carbohydrates that your body will turn into sugar.
Okay.
And so that's the net carb. For instance, a cup of oatmeal, a cup of oatmeal may have 30, not a cup, but a serving, may have 32 total carbohydrates. It has 4 grams of fiber, and 32 minus 4 is 28.
Okay.
So 28, that's 28 grams of sugar. And on the other hand, a cup of pecans may have 22 total carbohydrates, and it has 18 of fiber, and 22 minus 18 is 4. So a cup of pecans is something that you can have because it's relatively low in carbohydrates, but a cup of oatmeal would put you over 20 for the day.
Mm-hmm.
So when you say a carbohydrate, is that a gram?
They're grams.
Okay. Okay.
They're grams.
Yeah,
and
I've already shot that goal this morning with my breakfast.
Right, but your breakfast, you said it was yogurt.
Yeah, I'll tell you exactly what I had. I've been keeping a food log. The Faye.
You've been keeping a food log?
I have.
So you're into this. You're getting going.
Not from the
not from the carb
standpoint.
Into this, but you're on your way.
Yeah, I'm on my way. I'm sticking to a calorie goal every day, exercise and whatnot. So this morning I had 7 ounces of that Faye Total 2 yogurt, some Kellogg's Special K granola, which is quinoa, and then the oats, and then a tablespoon of the Simply Fruit Smucker's deal, which is just the
just
gelatin
fruit.
and fruit.
Yeah.
And that put me at 400 calories. Let me get to my
And
macros.
it's got the carbs on there.
Yeah, I got all my macros here.
Let me say something about the Simply Fruit. And this is a place where people get sidetracked sometimes. Is that on a package it'll say no added sugar. It'll say only sweetened with fruit. Well, what they do is they concentrate the fruit juices down to where they're super concentrated with a lot of sugar. And so it may say on the package it's only fruit, no added sugar. You have to be careful of that and look at the carbs on the back of the package, because it may have as much carbohydrate in it as just plain jelly that's just sweetened with sugar.
Yeah, and by the way, most sugar out there is just regular beet sugar.
Yeah.
And so, people think, oh, well, or corn syrup, which is high fructose corn
sugar.
syrup, but again, that's something to be aware of, right? Okay, so what do you have,
got your
Cliff, on
macros over there?
Got my macros up. I've got 26 grams of protein, 58 grams of carbohydrates,
Whoa.
5 grams of fiber, 8 grams of fat.
So yeah, it's that's basically kind of like standard American diet, because if you do 58 and you do that 3 times a day, and so that 60 times 3 is 180. You add onto that a snack or something in the middle, you could be over 200
Sure.
for the day. And
So on this nutritional plan, if you want to even call it that, my goal, and I don't follow this as a goal every day, I just mainly stick to the calories, but my goal for protein is 122 grams a day. Carbs is 305 a day. Fiber's 38, fat is 82.
what's your total calories for the day?
2,400.
Okay, so it's not that calories don't count, because calories do count.
Sure.
There are 2 ways to lose weight. There's either you can decrease your calories. For example, I know a guy who was getting his knees replaced
Yeah.
and had to lose 50, 60 pounds to get his knees replaced. And in order to do that, he worked with a nutritionist, and he ate like 1,500 calories a day.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy's 6'3", and some overweight that he had to lose.
Sure.
And so if you do 1,500 calories a day, and then calories do count, and they count when you're eating carbohydrates. The time when the calories don't count is when you're not eating the carbohydrates. There's this nice little experiment. You can look it up on dietdoctor.com. And what this guy does is he eats 5,000 calories a day. And on 5,000 calories a day, you should gain weight.
He's the Asian doctor, right?
No,
'cause there's
that's
several that I've seen that do that.
the dietdoctor.com is Andreas Einfeld, and he's I don't want to butcher his nationality. I'm not sure. He's
Are you
Eastern
thinking
Bloc.
about Are you thinking about Dr. Fung?
Dr. Fung.
Yes.
Yeah, the
That's what it
intermittent
is.
fasting guy. That's a different program.
No, not the intermittent fasting. The guy eats like 5,000 calories a day, daily.
So on this nice little experiment, if the guy eats a diet that's 65% carbohydrate,
Sure.
5,000 calories a day, you can do a calculation that says this many extra calories should equal this much fat that you put on each day, and it works perfectly.
Okay.
He gains weight, all month. He does the diet for a month. But then the guy switches over and he eats 5,000 calories a day, the same number of calories, but he only eats 5% carbohydrate instead of 65%. And when he does that, he can consume the same number of calories, and his weight actually stays the same, or he loses weight over the course of a month. And so calories do count if you're eating a standard carbohydrate type of diet.
Okay.
But they don't count once you go into a very low carbohydrate ketogenic diet.
Right. And that takes time to get used to. Your body as well as the diet aspect of it.
Yeah, there's an adjustment period, and so it takes somewhere between 4 days to 14 days. So 4 days to 2 weeks for your body to really switch over to actually burning fat for energy instead of burning sugar for energy. And it's different for everybody. And 70% of the people who switch over, they feel great the whole time. They don't have any problems. They
Sure.
just say, "Oh, I feel great." There's 30%, they get kind of like headache, fatigue, tired, flu-like symptoms, that sort of thing. And that's usually remedied by adding more salt. And so we'll say take a bouillon cube, dissolve it in warm water, drink a bouillon cube twice a day or 3 times a
That's a
day
lot of
as
sodium.
needed. It is, and that's another thing. So the sodium, the thing about, you know the word salary.
Uh-huh.
Salary comes from the word sal, which is it's a Latin word for salt, because Roman soldiers were paid in salt. That's because salt is a valuable thing. Your body needs salt to survive. If you don't have enough salt, you'll die. However, when you're eating a standard American diet of 65% carbohydrates and you add on top of that a lot of salt, then that combination together tends to elevate blood pressure and cause problems. But when you cut the carbohydrates down to 5% a day, you need to actually add more salt. There's two doctors named Finney and Wilkes who do these. They do studies on low carbohydrate diets and publish them in the scientific journals. But they supplement all of their subjects with 2 to 5 grams of salt a day. So when you're eating low carb, you don't have to fear the salt. You actually need more salt.
And do you recommend, like as my wife would say, I'll have the Himalayan salt, pink salt, thank you, not table salt.
Yeah, the benefit of that is that you get the trace minerals.
Right.
There are a lot of different trace minerals.
Because the
in
white
pink
salt has been, the iodine has been stripped out of it in a lot of cases, right? Or something.
There's just a bunch of trace minerals. There's probably a half dozen different trace minerals that are in there.
Yeah, well, that's the whole deal. I mean, she just absolutely will not go for white table salt anywhere. I mean, she's all about, making sure the trace minerals are in it.
It's a mental deal, Wade Wilkes. It's a mental deal.
Well, I think there's some validity to it, though, because, I mean, the high-end production, highly refined salts that you see in restaurants or general table salts aren't near as good for you as the all-natural salts.
The hard part about cutting the carbs is that you have to use a fork to eat your food. And that makes it hard to eat while driving, because
but I multitask, Doc. I eat when I drive. It takes me less time to do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, that part is a pain because, like I said, I'll drive through Taco Villa and get 2 meat burritos in a cup. 2 meat burritos, no tortilla. They just put them in a cup. And
right. No, go ahead.
And when I do that, you have to use a fork to eat it. You don't have the convenience of the tortilla. And the same thing goes for you get a bacon quarter pounder, a quarter pounder with bacon at McDonald's, no bun. Well, you got to eat it with a fork.
Yeah, that's been one of my toughest challenges because, I was at BurgerFi the other day, and they've got the good hamburger meat that's, organic and all that kind of stuff. And so my wife was eating it with no bun, and I just have a real problem with that. I mean, for me, I'm like, you know what?
I'm an American.
I'm going to have bun with my
hamburgers and apple pie.
Yeah, I'm like, I know a lot of people are into that kind of thing now, but I just, for some reason, cannot wrap my brain around that.
I'll mention something about fruits and vegetables here, and that's that, we in our minds, we always link together fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables, they go together. But the two are different because fruit contains fruit sugar, and vegetables don't. And so the fruit sugar is fructose, and the problem with fructose is that fructose is uniquely fattening. Your body can't burn fructose. So the only thing your body can do with fructose is turn it into triglycerides. Yeah. And triglycerides a fat storage molecule, so that's a bummer, right? The vegetables don't contain fruit sugar, they don't contain fructose, and potato is a starch. It's not a vegetable. And corn, corn and rice, those sort of things, those are grains. And so they don't count as vegetables either. So the vegetables that are really the ones you can stick to, of course, are going to be green leafy vegetables. And there are all sorts of other vegetables other than green leafy, but I would say count the carbohydrates in them, because things like a tomato is really a fruit. And it's not sweet, but a tomato has like 6 net carbs in a tomato. So there are carbohydrates in a large tomato.
Doc, you're killing me with all this stuff.
For
all the foods that I like and saying I can't have them.
Double cheese. The thing about men is that if with men, usually if I can say, look, you can have a steak, you can have double bacon cheeseburger, they can usually handle that. Yeah. They're like, oh, steak, got it. Because that's the stuff that it will be high in calories. Yeah. It will be high in fat. But you can either choose to kind of count calories and go down that road, or count carbs and go down that road. You can pick either one.
Right.
The fruit that are best for you to eat will be berries, because berries have the lowest amount of sugar in them. And
But isn't a tomato also a berry?
that I don't know.
Okay.
So the berries would be
Interesting.
raspberries, blackberries, strawberries, and then blueberries in that
Right.
order. And that's because a cup of raspberries has about 4 net carbs. A cup of blackberries is about 6. A cup of strawberries is about 8. And a cup of blueberries is about 15,
Yeah.
more or less. So the berries are going to be the lowest carbohydrate of the fruit and have the least impact on your blood sugar and your insulin levels. Compare that to one banana. One banana has 32 net carbs
Wow.
versus a cup of raspberries at 4.
Yeah.
Or one apple, 24 net carbs. So we do occasionally put like slices of apple on a, I still call them a sandwich, but well, I still use the word sandwich, but what we do a lot of times is we'll oven bake, put some 3 or 4 slices of turkey, put cheese on top of it, and then you put some slices of apple on top of it, thin
Yeah.
sliced apple. Or on top of that, rather than the apple, we may do jalapenos. And so we do like, turkey melt,
Yeah.
oven bake, that sort of thing.
So, if you dehydrate fruit, is that going to concentrate those carbs in there, or is that going to
It
maybe
does.
get rid of some of those carbs?
It concentrates them, and so I mentioned that each grape is about, each grape is about 1/2 to 1 net carb.
Okay.
And it depends on the size of the grape and how sweet they are. So, if you're looking at 40 grapes, that's 20 to 40 net carbs right there. Well, when you take those grapes and you dehydrate them into raisins and you put them in a package, well, each raisin is going to be the same thing, 1/2 to 1 net carb. And so I'd been doing low carb for a couple of years. My wife made me this wonderful little, it was like a fruit salad, and it's just a little 1/2 cup of fruit salad.
Yeah.
And it was pineapple with raisins on top of it with some shredded coconut. And I hadn't eaten pineapple in ages, and I thought, well, how many carbs are in pineapple? Is it bad or not? And how much is in raisins? Because I hadn't eaten any raisins. And that 1/2 cup of fruit salad was 60 net carbs. When you combine, the pineapple is especially high in sugar, and then the raisins are too. So raisins are dehydrated fruit, are kind of like they're like candy.
Okay.
In their sugar content.
Wow. And a lot of people don't recognize that or even think about that. And one thing that I've been kind of focused in on is that whatever spikes your insulin is also bad.
Mm-hmm.
Now, again, we need to, I guess, address just the sugars and fruit sugars, and I know you are, but, when you spike your insulin, then your body starts doing some different things metabolically at that point.
Well, one of the great things about doing my job, doing the metabolic coaching deal, is that I'm in personal contact by email and text message with all of my clients. And I keep up with them for 3 months and some of them for longer. And so they send me stuff all the time. And so I learn a lot from them, and then maybe I learn more from them than they learn from me, because I get to learn from, 30 or 40 or 60 of them, and they only get to learn from one of me. But one of them sent me an article, and it was talking about the artificial sweetener sucralose.
Mm-hmm.
And that sucralose, they did a study where they tested insulin levels and insulin resistance in people who use the artificial sweetener sucralose, and it spikes insulin levels and leads to insulin resistance, like immediately after taking it.
Yeah.
So artificial sweeteners really aren't, they aren't great.
Well, I will tell you though that cooking in a ketosis way, if for lack of a better word, is not really that hard. That's one thing we've been doing in our house.
It usually happens on the grill.
Yeah, it's really not. It's
My
really
favorite
simple.
kind of cooking.
Yeah, it's really simple. Yeah, and he
It's on the
likes to
grill.
grill out a lot.
Yeah.
Cliff does, and that's perfect.
So we'll do a lot of things on the grill. We do burgers and hot dogs and steaks, and then with that we'll do on the grill also asparagus or summer squash, zucchini squash, cauliflower, which is great when you toss it.
Broccoli.
Yeah, cauliflower, broccoli.
Yeah.
And you can do all of those things while you're out on the grill. It'll decrease your cleanup time.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, last night we had a chicken cheese with bacon and broccoli with butter. That was last night's dinner. It was really good. Mm-hmm. And it was not that hard to do.
And so what you do, the thing is, the hard part is, all of the breads are gone, and I like the breads, and the sugar is gone. So that's the hard part. But I mean, you fill that void actually with fat, because you need more fat. So when you eat, like if you cook your broccoli or whatever, then you be sure that you add butter to it. There's plenty of butter, there's plenty of olive oil. For dessert, a lot of times at my house we'll have berries, usually like strawberries, and then we whip cream at our house all the time. You don't want Cool Whip, because Cool Whip's a hydrogenated vegetable oil. No. And so that's like a heart attack in a can. The Ready Whip that comes in that you shoot out of the aerosol can, it's better, but it's got sugar in it, And so, the best thing to do is just take, a heavy whipping cream, put it in the mixer, and put it on for a few minutes and whip it up yourself. Because that's the only, that way it just contains cream. If you want to sweeten it, the best sweeteners to use are going to be number 1, liquid stevia, number 2, erythritol, or number 3, swerve. And swerve is a combination of erythritol with some fructooligosaccharides, and so those are going to have the lowest glycemic index of the sweeteners and have the least impact on your blood sugar.
But bottom line, what Cliff is doing, which a lot of people do, is just by counting calories only, doesn't really get you to where you need to be. I mean, temporarily you might start seeing some weight loss and all that kind of stuff, but then, you're really not, you're not really fixing the problem, right?
A lot of people who come to the metabolic coaching program, they've done all the diets. They've done everything. They've done Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig and on
Nutrisystem,
and
order food,
right, and
whatever.
And a lot of those diets, they're going to be low-fat, low-calorie diets. So they're low-fat, low-calorie diets, but they're still high in carbohydrates. And so as long as you're still eating a significant amount of carbohydrates, every time you eat the carbs, you increase your insulin levels. And insulin is the fat storage hormone of the human body. And we, as physicians, we know this, because if we give a patient, start a type 2 diabetic on insulin injections, we expect them to gain 20 or 30 pounds that year. Mm-hmm. And that's just from the insulin injection if they don't change their diet at all. And so the more insulin somebody gets, or their body makes, the more weight they gain. And so a lot of these clients, metabolic coaching clients who have tried all these other diets, they're still high carbohydrate diets, and for that reason they have trouble losing weight on a high carb, low fat diet, even if it's reduced calorie.
Right. But there is some individuals, and what did you say, about 20% of us that are not carb resistant, meaning that you can, there are people out there that can eat a lot of carbs and it doesn't really affect them.
Yeah, I mean, there are people out there who because of the way their metabolism is set up, their metabolic rate, they can eat carbohydrates, 300 grams of carbohydrates a day, and they don't gain weight, they don't get high blood pressure, they don't get high blood sugar. It's just they burn them. And this program is definitely not for them.
Well, right, but what percentage would you say of the American public would that be? Would you say that's 10% of us, or I don't know?
Just based on the fact that a third of Americans are overweight and a third are obese, so that's 2/3.
Yeah.
I would say there's probably about a third, 30%, that can eat just a standard American diet.
And be fine.
And be fine.
Wow. Wow. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come right back. Stick around. We got plenty to go. If you have a question along the way, 745-5800. Stick around. We'll be back. Welcome back into the show right here. Dr. Justin Anderson, Metabolic Coaching, metabolic coaching.net. Check out the website. Our number at the clinic, 448-0322, 448-0322. Cut the killer carbs. Yes, indeed. It sounds easier than what it is, but I don't know. I mean,
it's a simple fix, right?
Yeah,
cut
everybody
this out.
just do it, no problem.
It's actually a change in mindset.
Yeah.
Because it is very, very simple. And the second your mind switches, you flip that switch in your mind and you're done with the carbs, then there's no more struggle.
See, that's the issue that I have, is I haven't gotten to the point where I need to, or my mind clicks. See, that's the way I am. It's exactly the way I am. I used to, in high school up through college, I'd dip a can of Copenhagen every day.
Oh, yes.
And then, for whatever reason, just a switch. Never going to do it again.
You were done.
Do a can. I was literally driving down the road, took the can, threw it out the window. Haven't touched the stuff since.
Yeah, congratulations. Man.
Yeah,
and
no
so
kidding.
that's the drinking beer, right? In high school or in college, I was pretty
In high school.
Well, no, don't lie. Most of us did. In high school and college, I drank a lot, and then I get to a point where my wife's like, "You drink too much." Okay, well, I won't.
Yeah,
Right. So I just stopped. I drank now I drink maybe 2 drinks a week, and it's mostly whiskey. And so
Right.
I don't have that mentality of I'll just slowly cut it off. For me, it's all or nothing. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. If I'm not, it's done. And it's an instant switch.
Let's go to the phone line. Good morning. Welcome into the show.
Good morning.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, go right ahead.
I have a question
Okay.
about the basal metabolic rate. Is that a constant rate?
The basal metabolic rate. Is it a constant rate? Was that the question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a constant rate, and that reminds me of some of the stuff that Dr. Fung talks about, and that is if you do calorie restrict, if you calorie restrict your diet, let's say you require 2,500 calories a day to maintain your weight, and you calorie restrict down to 1,500 calories a day, your basal metabolic rate actually drops. So you reduce your basal metabolic rate over time to where when you go from, you've eaten this diet, this 1,500 calorie a day diet for say a couple of months, and then you go up to say 1,800 calories a day, you'll start gaining weight again. And that's because you've dropped your basal metabolic rate. So it is not constant.
So then the calories in, calories out diet really will not work, correct? For long term.
That's right. That's one of the problems with why it doesn't work long term, is that you reduce your basal metabolic rate with that. And
Okay.
what I teach people in metabolic coaching is we don't count calories at all. You should eat till you're full, and instead just keep your carbohydrates down low enough that your body's not making much insulin. And when it doesn't make much insulin, you don't store fat. And instead of storing fat, you burn it.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and a text coming in on that same question says, is there a max number of recommended grams of carbs per day? And the answer to that is 20, right?
For the clients who come to my program, I start everybody at 20, and I tell them to just stay at 20 so that their body stays in ketosis. It stays in fat burning, because that keeps their blood sugar the best, their blood pressure the best, and it helps them to lose weight.
But the people that come to see you are in dire straits. Now, I want to make...
No. Some of them just want to lose weight, but some of them are diabetic, high blood pressure.
Yeah.
And some of them are athletes. Like I have a guy who's a PhD student athlete who comes in, and he just wants to lose weight, get more cut, and so we do that too. And it's the same thing. It's 20.
Well, but again, that goes back to our conversation we had last week, which was this whole notion of carb cycling. Carb cycling being that, okay, one day I'm going to do what Dr. Anderson says. I'm really restrictive on the carb intake, but then the next day I'm going to be okay. I'll just eat normal. And then the next day I'm carb restrictive, so on and so forth, for carb cycling, mainly for people who are working out and wanting to add on muscle
For
and all that.
6 days, you should do very low carbohydrate, less than 20 a day, and then 1 day a week, you could consider having a cup of rice. Split between 2 meals.
There you go, Cliff.
A cup of rice.
Whoa. Yeah, that would be rough. Sorry about that. I lost the caller there.
It should be something that's not addictive, like sugar or wheat. but like a cup of rice or a cup of sweet potato split between 2 meals.
See, I've done really well for the first. I always do well, and this is where I'm getting hung up. I always do well Monday through Wednesday. Monday through Wednesday is no problem. But then I start to cheat a little bit on Thursday. And then by the time Sunday rolls around, I'm just eating normal again.
You know, Wade's problem for cutting
that is a
carbs
problem. I mean,
is he drinks too much beer. And beer is nothing but carbs.
It's liquid bread.
it is. You're right. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
So let's talk about this. We mentioned this over
let's
the break.
try this again, the caller right quick. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. So listening, trying to lose weight, obviously. So I'm doing the vegetables and fruit in the morning, but I'm hearing the bad issues with the frozen fruit, being the fructose. But I'm adding like mixed fruit with kale and spinach, but maybe that's not doing what I needed to do. So just kind of suggestions on smoothies in the morning.
Yeah, so for a smoothie in the morning, you know, you could use, if you're going to add some fruit to your smoothie, then I would... If you're going to add some fruit, then I would add berries. Berries would be the fruit to add. Kale sounds awesome. On doing a low carbohydrate diet, what you would want to do is make sure that your smoothie has plenty of fat in it. So you would add coconut oil to it. You could add coconut oil or MCT oil or liquid coconut oil. And for your base, you would use water and some heavy cream. Your berries could be frozen, that could be your cold part, or you could add some or ice for your frozen. But I mean, the focus would be to add more fat and less carbs, because the diet is LCHF. That's LC is low carbohydrate, HF is high fat, and that combination keeps your insulin levels down. Now what happens to some people is they hear the add fat, but they don't hear cut the carbs. And what happens is, if you're still eating carbohydrates and you add more fat to your diet, you just gain more weight. So that part doesn't work. It's got to be LCHF, low carb plus high fat. And the reason you're doing high fat is because carbohydrates stimulate insulin production, which causes you to store fat. Protein stimulates insulin production, which causes you to store fat, but protein stimulates less of it, and fat stimulates very little insulin production. So there's a book called Strong Medicine by a doctor named Blake Donaldson, who treated people for 50 years for overweight, diabetes, heart disease with this low carbohydrate, high fat diet. And basically he said you will burn off your fat in the flame of fresh fat meat. And the whole idea was, with his diet, was you eat a half pound of 70-30 ground beef or lamb or mutton, whatever, but 70-30. You have a half pound of that at each meal.
Oh, wow.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for the information.
Yeah, you're welcome.
A half pound of it? Really?
Wow. So I had this question over the break. We talked about it a little bit. From a standpoint of a high cardio exercise regimen, I was telling you that, so for instance, Saturday, I went and did a spin class. Total time was 1 hour and 3 minutes. I was averaged 86% heart rate.
Wow.
Through the entire thing. So, it went from 70-something% all the way up to, 98 percent of like whatever, however you call that, whatever you call that.
Maximum,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, you got the heart rate monitor on, so it's pretty accurate. From a carb standpoint, I've always been taught you can exercise that much, you need carbs to go through that kind of regimen, particularly if I'm going to go out. Obviously I'm a cyclist, but if I'm going to go out and ride 70 miles in a race, how do I do that without eating a bunch of carbs to keep that fuel going?
It'll be easier. You interview Dr. Ben all the time, and he talks about Angie Romans, and Angie Romans, she's a distance cyclist. She does those 60-70 mile an hour bike races. And what the traditional teaching is, well, you need to carb load, so you build up your glycogen stores, you burn your glycogen while you're doing these long races, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's one way to do it. And then at the end, you're taking these gel packs of sugar and stuff to get your energy back up because you're low on energy. The other way to do it is you cut out the carbs, you go on this very low carbohydrate ketogenic diet to where your body starts burning fat instead. And then you can use fat to go all the way through your bike ride without having to re-up on sugar with these gel packs and stuff. These two doctors, Finney and Volek, they published a book called The Art and Science of Low Carbohydrate Performance. And what they do is, they study these high performance athletes, whether they're marathoners, distance runners, or whatever, to see how they do on this low carbohydrate ketogenic diet. And they tend to perform better because they don't hit a wall.
Right.
They're not during their performance and run out of energy and hit a wall because they run out of sugar, because on your body you carry around months worth of fat, just months and months worth of fat. And as long as you have that fat accessible and liberated, you can use it. But for you to get to the point to where you could go and do your cardio on a low carbohydrate diet, that's going to take you a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Because if you go and you try to do that cardio during the transition period, that 4 to 14 day transition period, you're not going to make it. You're not going to make it, because what happens is the sugar that you're using for energy goes down when you cut the carbs out, but you haven't upped the amount of fat in your diet, or the amount of fat in your bloodstream that you use for energy. So you have to wait for a couple of weeks until you get what's called keto adapted, which means adapted to burning fat. And once you get keto adapted, then your performance should improve rather than be worse. And that's what Finney and Volek have found in their studies, is that these high performance athletes, like professional athletes, Olympic athletes, their performance improves on a low carbohydrate ketogenic diet, but only after they've gone through the adaptation stage. The one group of athletes who are not better are sprinters. Like if you're doing like 100-meter sprint.
Well, sure, they need that short burst.
For the short burst, the 100-meter sprint, those people do not improve. But anything longer than that, then their performance is improved.
That's interesting. But what about the idea, because I've always wondered this, if you're doing, say like you're a hardcore, I'm going to go to the gym every day, and I know the old saying, you can't outwork out a poor diet.
Right.
I mean, that just doesn't happen. I'm living proof of that, because I'm working out 4 or 5 times a week, 45 minutes to an hour every day. But I never gained weight, but never really lost a whole lot of weight either, right? So
I worked out in January of last year.
I know you don't. You don't work out at all, and you're skinny
great.
as a rail. It makes me kind of sick. But the point being is that, do you get into a situation if you
I also worked out in 2014.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, I work out because I just like it. I like doing it. To have, I liked it. I like it. But does it help blowtorch it off if you're if you're ketogenic and you're in that state, and then you're working out on top of it? Do you start blowtorching the fat off, or no?
I don't. I mean, just from what I've seen, from what I've seen, from what I've read, from clients' experiences, it doesn't work that way, because the more that you exercise, the more you build up an appetite. If you were, let's say you were going to go like lumberjacks, right? Lumberjacks, they swinging an axe, they may spend 10,000 calories a day. And they spend 10,000 calories a day, they're going to eat 10,000 calories a day. And lumberjacks aren't like the smallest people in the world. And so it's a matter of lots of exercise helps you to build up an appetite, because your body knows, hey man, I'm burning through all this stuff, so I need more food. So exercise is great, because exercise is a builder. You want to build your heart muscle. You want to build muscle on your arms. You can tell I don't exercise, because I don't have big muscles on my arms, right? So, so it's a builder, and then on top of that building, the other part of looking good, feeling good, is to get rid of some of the fat that covers up your muscles. And that's like, there's a deal that says, everybody has a six-pack. You've got one. It's down there. It's just covered up.
Mine's just well insulated.
Right, it's insulated.
Yes.
I've got a buddy that's to this point. I've got a buddy that's, the guy's ripped. He works out all the time, and he's always trying a new diet just to see how it works. Kind of like the experimental phase of it. He follows a bunch of bodybuilder guys on social media and their blogs or whatever, and so now he's going to start the low carb, high fat diet, because whoever the guy is doing it cuts all that fat out, and so you've got less body fat, and you're more ripped.
Yeah,
is what his goal is in all this.
I've had a call and worked with a guy who he's like super low body fat, like 5% body fat, But his problem was, he said, I feel like I have to eat all the time. I have to eat and eat and eat and eat, or I have absolutely no energy. And we switched him over to a low carbohydrate ketogenic diet just so that he could go more than 30 minutes without having to eat. And so your friend should check out, there's a online book. It's called Eat, Stop, Eat, and it's written by a bodybuilder. And it talks about fasting. You know, it's kind of like low carb and fasting. A lot of athletes work out in the fasted state, and that way they'll.
I'm doing that. That works pretty good.
I mean,
although I can't go much.
Obviously.
Well, no, I can't go more than 30
come on,
minutes.
you don't
so.
have something for him on it?
No, I know. He'll take a cheap shot. You know, I don't.
Hey, at least I do it
I
in the room.
I don't do cheap shots on this show ever. Right.
Only when they're not in
yeah.
the fitness.
No, but honestly, that if you're going to do that, it's no doubt about it that if you're, because I do intermittent fasting. And I'm trying to do the low carbs as well. Trying to. That's a key word. You know, at least I'm recognizing it. But I've lost 10 pounds in the last 3 weeks. Okay, and that's pretty good. You know, moving along.
Fabulous.
10 pounds. My goal is to reach 180. I'm at 220. So I'm like, whoa. So that was about a 50-pound weight loss where I wanted to go. So I'm down 10. But I also know that with my cardio or even a strength workout, that like yesterday I did a 24-hour fast. I ate Sunday night, didn't eat again until last night. But I worked out before, and I've noticed that I cannot work out more. Like what Cliff did on cycling, there is no way I could have done that after a 24-hour fast. The most my body can go, at least at this stage, is about half an hour, and I'm smoked.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I'm done with that workout, man, I have to eat. I'm really hungry. I mean, I'm almost like dizzy hungry at that point. And I did a cardio workout last night, which was basically I walked for a couple minutes and then all-out sprint for about 60 seconds. And I did about 7 of those, which is kind of a high-intensity type workout, a HIIT training type workout.
Right.
But, you know, for 25 minutes, 30 minutes of that, I'm done. I can't go more than 30 minutes.
I think that probably shows that you're still a sugar burner. You know.
Okay.
And that would make sense that you would still be a sugar burner if you're not all the way into.
That's right. Right. Okay.
If you're not all the way into super low carb.
But I'm losing weight though, to a certain extent. And it's not rapid.
And it's not, the thing that you're doing, you're lowering the carbohydrates, which is good.
Yeah.
You're doing the fasting, which is good. And I think fasting is great. And I think anybody, I think people would benefit from fasting if they would do more fasting. But for Americans, the idea of fasting is hard, number one, because people like to eat. Number two, fasting is real hard to do if you're not going lower on the carbohydrates first. And so what I do for clients is I put them on a low carbohydrate plan. At that point, they start to lose weight. Their energy goes up. That's the best thing. I mean, the best thing is that on most diets, people feel crappy.
Yeah, true.
For lack of a better word.
No, they do.
People don't feel
Feel
good.
terrible.
They feel
Right.
kind of tired and kind of low energy, and they don't feel well. And on a very low carbohydrate diet where you're getting plenty of fat and plenty of calories, people feel better. So you feel better while you're losing weight, and you have more energy, and people say they sleep better, and their acid reflux goes away. And so it helps you feel better now. And I don't even remember what we're talking about.
Well, we were talking about the fact of how
the fasting.
that you incorporate if you have a client that for some reason is doing everything that you prescribe to do, but they're just plateaued, then you'll say, okay, let's try some intermittent fasting here,
Right.
to get you over the plateau. I've been doing it kind of backwards. I'm like, okay, but because I like intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting to me is easy. Now, Cliff, on the other hand, I've talked to him about it. He's like, dude, there's no way I would do it.
You're going to be fasting over there?
I've done 72-hour
Fasting
fast.
for me.
Yeah.
I've done,
And that's the thing is that everybody is different.
Different, right.
And so, if fasting is easy, and it's the easiest thing
easy
you to
for
do,
me.
I think fasting is awesome. I would add on to fasting, watching the carbohydrates like you're doing.
Yes.
So, I mean,
Yes.
you're definitely on the right track. But like you said, like Cliff doesn't want to do it, and most people, when you tell them fast or change your eating window, they're very resistant to that.
Well, but what Cliff will do, and some people fall into this trap
Because
of saying
both of those lower your insulin level.
they do. But what ends up happening is a lot of people end up with this idea that, okay, well, I'm going to get on a spin machine, or I'm going to go out and cycle, or I'm going to lift weights, or I'm going to run on the treadmill for an hour, and I'm looking at a little calorie burner over there, and I burned off 500 calories. So, yeah, I burned off 500. I can replace that 500 with whatever. And that's where people get into trouble.
And you've
it
probably
doesn't work like that.
seen the deal on
Right?
YouTube where, yeah, exactly. It doesn't work like that, because to burn off 2 slices of pizza, you have to be on the treadmill for hours. And I don't know if you've ever seen that YouTube video where they have the guy, he eats 2 slices of pizza, they calculate the calories, and then he says, okay, hop on the treadmill, and watches the time lapse. This poor guy's on the treadmill for like 3 hours, burning off 2 slices of pizza.
I'm having to burn off a 12-pack.
What's covering up your 6-pack is your 12-pack.
That's right. Yeah. See? That's the problem. I think that's where I'm having trouble.
You know, and I can tell you, I've had clients who drink alcohol and still lose weight.
Yes.
And so the alcohol stuff on your liver, the alcohol, your body turns alcohol into triglycerides just like it does fructose, and that's a storage form of fat. So in my opinion, and what I came to realize, just like Cliff said, Cliff was like, well, yeah, I was just done drinking one time.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I just kind of realized, hey, alcohol's a toxin. That's why it makes me walk funny. If you have too many drinks, you don't.
Well, sure.
It slurs your speech. It'll make you lose your balance, whatever. So I just had that realization, and so but clients can still lose weight and drink alcohol at the same time. But my overall general recommendation is, hey, cut out the alcohol or have a drink a day.
Is there certain alcohols that are worse than others, like as opposed to wine, a glass of beer, as opposed to a bourbon?
You would low carb your alcohol, so you would do distilled spirits would be preferable to beer, would be preferable to sweet wines. Dry red wines and dry whites would be fine too.
Okay.
Count the carbs in your alcohol.
But then but that's what's weird is if you look on the side of a Coors Light can, it's got less than 1 carb. It's a carb, in a can, according to or maybe it's 5. But I can't recall.
Dr. Bernstein, who treats lots of diabetics, he has said that one beer does not adversely affect the blood sugar. And so like one drink, and he's done this for like 40 years. He treats diabetics with a low carbohydrate
Just
diet.
one?
One beer does not affect
Just one. Well,
That's all you need, Wade.
You can't have just one.
Not just one drink. Like you can have 64 ounces in one glass. That doesn't count.
Does that count, doctor? Just one at 64 liquid ounces? But one. Well, what happens if you go to 2? Then you start pushing insulin?
Then you start pushing it. Mm-hmm.
You start pushing insulin at that point. Because if you get the insulin spike, then that's when you're
It starts to affect your blood sugar and your insulin.
Okay. Wow. Is that 1 per hour? Or is that 1 per day?
1 per day.
Wow.
Take note, Wade Wilkes.
Oh, okay. Couple of texts real quick. Butch says, I do 4-hour fast. Oh, gee. You got to do longer than that.
Well, that's the first step is eat 3 meals a day, right? And that's one thing Dr. Ben says, 3 meals a day instead of snacking all day, eating every 2
Well, you
hours.
have the eating window with intermittent
So
fasting.
what is you hear? What about these folks that eat? Well, I'm going to have 6, 7, 8 small meals a day.
6, 7, 8 small meals a day is all about keeping your blood sugar up. Because you get these blood sugar dips every 2. If you eat carbs, the sugar goes up, and then 2 hours later it goes down.
Yeah.
And when it goes down, people feel low energy. So you eat 6 times a day to keep your sugar up all day. Keeping your sugar up all day is a horrible idea if you're trying to lose weight.
Yeah, that's right.
You want your sugar to be down, and your insulin levels down.
Does caffeine have any effect on the low-carb, high-fat diet? That's another question from a texter.
I don't have any problem with caffeine. I think if you can keep your caffeine... Drinking caffeine is fine, but I would limit your caffeine to before noon, because the half-life of caffeine is 8 hours.
I agree with that.
And this happened to me. I was drinking in the afternoon, and in the evening I would drink tea, or sometimes drink Diet Coke. and it totally messed up my sleep. And when you mess up your sleep, the stress from not sleeping well, that kind of spills over into you gaining weight.
I totally agree
stress.
with that. That's the best thing you've said all morning long, because I drink 1 cup of coffee in the morning on the show. I do not touch the stuff after noon, because I was for a while, and then I realized I wasn't sleeping very well at night. And then I heard we talked about this, and I stopped it, and now I'm back to sleeping like a rock at night. With which is good. So anyway, it's interesting. Okay. All right, doctor.
It's his first day.
Yeah,
It's his
okay.
first day.
Sorry about
okay.
that.
It's
Lost
okay.
the caller. Anything else you'd like to say before we go today? We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing you back here next week on the show. But any final thoughts before we let you out of here?
No, I think it's been a great show. Basically, if you're struggling with your weight, if you want to make progress, visit the website, metaboliccoaching.net. Give me a call. We'll try to get you feeling better now and losing weight now at the same time, instead of,
And Cliff's going to sign up since he's at a 40 BMI.
Yeah, the last thing I want to say, Cliff, to switch that mental switch in your head, I have these little audio tracks that you listen to.
That's right.
And they work like hypnosis to flip the switch to make it easy instead of hard.
Hypnosis doesn't work on me, dog. It's like the caffeine with him. He has like an ounce of coffee and he's done for the rest of the day. I'll drink a pot of coffee before I go to sleep and sleep like a baby.
Yeah.
Stuff doesn't affect me as
Yeah.
well as some other.
Everybody's their own chemistry
Yeah.
set, Cliff.
Yeah.
Everybody's their own chemistry set, right?
I'll bring you a CD.
Do what works, right? I gotcha. Hey, Dr. Justin Anderson, we appreciate it. Once again, metaboliccoaching.net. Check it out. Also, Cut the Killer Carbs on Facebook. Cut the Killer Carbs on Facebook. 448-0322. Thanks, Doctor. We appreciate it. See you back here next week. Have a wonderful day.
All right, thank
Stick
you.
around now. Unconfused coming up next right here on AM 580.